Hello friends, it's Lisa and I'm back today with the full liquid watercolor comparison video. If you have missed it, I have done 5 individual liquid watercolor comparisons, so you can go ahead and watch those videos after this one. You don't need to watch them in order or anything. You can watch this one and you'll be able to go and look at all the different ones and see if you want to go back and see one of those or whatever you want to. So let's go ahead and get started. Here are the 5 that I tried, with the Pink Fresh on the top left, the Hero Arts the top right, Avery Elle. On the very bottom we have the Jane Davenport mermaid markers. Sorry, I was about to say that wrong. And the DR.PH Martin Hydrus. Before we get into everything, I just want to say I added in the mermaid markers just because I felt like a lot of the things you'd want to do with the liquid watercolors would also be done with the mermaid markers, and I wanted to compare how they were similar and different. So the main 4 are the Pink Fresh, Hero Arts, DR.PH Martins, and Avery Elle's, with just for comparison purposes, the Jane Davenports. Also to note, before we get started, if you're looking to do super fine art watercolors, you're going to need a light fast rating for the watercolors that you're using, and the only liquid watercolors that have that is the DR.PH Martins, the Hydrus ones. They have another line which is called something else, and they are not light fast. So just kind of whatever you're wanting to be doing. If it's something that's okay that in 5 years it's a little bit faded, or you're planning on taking a picture of it to make it a digital copy, then any of the watercolors will work for you. But if you are fine art, if that's really what you want, you really need to go with the DR.PH Martins. So first we have the Pink Fresh Studios liquid watercolor. These are brand new. They come in the glass bottles, and they have the pipette droppers. So that's both of those facts are very nice. Here I'm going to show you this clip of I painted this same exact image on Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper for all 5 of them. So you could kind of get a feel of the different watercolors. I'm just going to go through a tiny bit. This is at double the speed of normal, I believe. So I don't watercolor quite that fast. I put way too much watercolor on, so I'm trying to pull that back a little bit by using my clean, mostly dry brush and grabbing it and then wiping it off. Next, I'm going to put in some yellow in this. It looked to me like a snowball or ice cone, so that's kind of what I try and do. And for all of them, I try and do something similar. I also try and get all of the colors in. A few of them I missed 1 or 2 of the colors because they just didn't really fit. Like the black, just only so much you can do with a black on such festive things. But you can see I added that second color in. I also tried mixing colors. So with the purple, that was actually a little bit of a mix. Now I'm coloring in with the yellow onto the bottoms, and I'm going to add in their brown. So they have a really nice brown color. Some of the others don't have a brown, so that's just something to note. Here I'm adding it in. They layer and blend beautifully. I had no issues at all with that. Even coming back, the yellow at that point was dry, so coming back with a wet water they still mixed great together. Just something to see. You can see the pigmentation in this a little bit, which is nice. Actually, in watercolor, you want a little bit of the pigmentation. You can get a lot of cool textures when you work with that rather than fighting against it. So, got a lot of really nice watercolory stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead. Next, I wanted to show you on the big picture is all of the different colors swatched out. They're very vibrant and high quality watercolor paints. They do have a very solid primary and secondary colors with a few more on-trend colors as well. So you can see the Candy Apple, Sunshine, and Sapphire are very primary red, yellow, and blue, which is great because you can use those to create all of the other colors. Having them be very primary allows you to get a lot more shades. When they start going off primary, you're losing your abilities to create different shades. The Clementine, the Key Lime, and the Lavender aren't quite as middle of the road, but they're pretty close. So those also make it a little easier to create some of the colors. Having the on-trend colors are actually really positive as well because then you don't have to focus so much on creating those colors. You just get to use them right out of the bottle. You can see my unicorn that I painted, and that came out yesterday, so if you're interested, go and check that out. The embossing powder was a little bit funky. That was the first time I'd ever used it, so the paints were really nice. The embossing powder was different than expected. So I got a different look, but I went with it. Finally, you can see the end result of my watercolor play with the ice creams. I really like the different textures and the feels I got with the watercolor. It's one of my favorite things about watercolor is you don't have complete control of it. You're working with the watercolor rather than it doing exactly what you want. And why do I say that? Because a lot of times acrylic, it doesn't move. It's not, you're going to put it down and it's going to stay there. But the watercolor, you get a lot more action and adventure, and you get things you don't expect, which is always fun to work with. Next, I'm going to show you this quick video of how I created the next slide, and I'm only going to show this one for just the Pink Fresh. I created all the others in the exact same way. I'm doing a layering color chart, and you'll see it covers up half of the chart. You could go in and do a mix color chart on the other side where you would mix the Candy Apple and Clementine for that open cell at the top of Clementine. One thing I missed right there was I needed to bring the watercolor over to the left on that Clementine line so it would cover the Candy Apple color. I go back and do that. I'm not sure if I show you in this video, but I do go back and add that one for the Clementine. I just forgot to do it on that one. So you see me heating it up in between just because I do each layer and you want to get the pure color rather than them to start mixing. I'm also doing a Venn diagram color, the primary colors, to see kind of what you get when you do that. So there's the Key Lime, and in just a second it'll skip over to when I'm doing the Sapphire, but you can see that you get a lot of different colors. You'll start to see that the colors come out as it dries. And the top cell for each color is that color exactly without any other colors is what it ends up being. So you get that diagonal line of the right color. Next I'm adding the Sapphire, and I just added a single drop into each of those Venn diagrams and 1 to 2 drops of them on the grid side. So I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. Here you can see the finished chart, and you can see how vibrant that these Pink Fresh Studio colors are. They're somewhere between a jewel tone and a primary tone. Why is that important? Because the most vibrant color is what you're going to get right out of the jar, and so that's something to consider. The lighter it is, that's as light, that's as dark as it's going to get. That's as vibrant as it's going to be. So go with what works best for you. The Hero Arts liquid watercolors are next. These are also in a glass jar, different shaped, and they also have the pipette dropper. So let's take a look at how these work. I'm going to show you that snowball again, where I'm layering the colors or kind of mixing them together on the page, and you'll see they work. It lays down really nice and easy. I like the pipette a lot because you can get tiny bits. There it's off camera, but I'm actually taking my brush to the pipette. I'm holding it just a tad so a little drop comes out, and I add it to my brush. Now I'm going to add some black and fill in the white stripe of the red, white, and blue ice pop. I felt like this really needed to be a red, white, and blue ice pop because when I was little, that's the kind that I super loved. But to get it white, you actually need to have some shading, so I added the black in. Next, I'm adding the blue, and we're going to skip to the brown now. The Hero Arts actually has a brown, so that's really nice. And when I put it down, it was a little dark for what I wanted, so I'm taking a little bit of that color off, and I can add the darker, a little bit more of the dark right where I want the shading. So it's kind of interesting. You're putting the product down and then you're taking it up, but that gets me what I'm trying to get to. But I felt like it wasn't quite the right, it wasn't as warm as I wanted it to be, so I'm adding yellow, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I'll come back in a minute and add some brown lowlights, so I'll skip ahead and you can see that right there. Next, you can see how everything turned out. These are also pretty vibrant with a great basic color range. I would say they're even more jewel toned than the Pink Fresh, with great mixing and layering abilities. These ones didn't have quite as much pigmentation as the Pink Fresh. Not a good or bad thing, just something I noticed. But they do come out very vibrant. You can see on the top right hand corner, that was the video I did a few days ago where I did the background and it came out super vibrant. One thing about these to note is I feel like there are more on trend colors, which makes sense because the company is coming out with them pretty regularly, like one new watercolor per month, and so they go with some of their other products, and it tends to be whatever they're doing. Like last month, or when I got them, I got the teal, and that was with their ocean scene stuff, so it makes sense. Here's the color chart with this. I thought that the strawberry, dandelion, and indigo were the most primary colors. You can actually see more of the orange, green, and purple that come out when you layer those on the Venn diagram. And you can just see the really cool colors that you get on the color chart. Remember that this is very concentrated color, so if I wanted to create something like this mulled wine mixed with strawberry, but I felt like that was too dark, I could mix those two together and lighten it up with some water. Next, we have the DR.PH Martin liquid watercolors, and remember, these are the fine art quality, so they are light fast. They are similar to the Hero Arts in packaging. They have the pipette dropper, but instead of being glass, they're actually plastic. They do have full ounce bottles that are in glass, but these half-ounce bottles are in plastic. So let's look here. I'm going to do the snowball real quick, and I just drop in a tiny bit of color. You don't need a lot with these concentrated watercolors. You think you do. You think you need to add a bunch, but that was one mistake I made. Then I'm going to add tiny drop and add it in with my brush. And see how I'm adding it wet into wet? Then I get a lot of movement and texture, and I can increase that by moving my brush around. So that's how you get some really cool colors. I was afraid the orange was overtaking it, so I blotted it out a little bit and got that really cool snowball effect that I've been trying to go for. I'm also going to add the purple ice cream. I haven't really eaten any purple ice cream, but I thought it'd be pretty cool to have. So just adding a little bit into the water, so wet into wet, and it'll move around and look really cool. Let's fast forward just a little bit to where I'm adding the brown. You can see that I mix the colors by just adding a drop or two to my surface or my palette, and I'm adding them together. I felt like the brown was similar to the Hero Arts brown, where it just wasn't warm enough for what I needed. So I added a little bit of the Hansa light yellow and can move into the darker area of my mixing and add some shadows. So let's go ahead and move on. These are textured. They're very textured. You can see that in the red and orange stripes of my rainbow at the top right. That was just trying to get a flat wash, and you can see some granulation. Not a good or a bad thing, just something to note. Also, you need a tiny drop of this, and it'll go a really long way. You can see that my swatches are a little oversaturated with color. So there is more variation in the application, which actually lends itself more to high quality pan watercolors. That's something you get when you're using watercolors out of the tubes or in a pan that are high quality. And they're very deep colors out of the jar. So I felt like these were the deepest colors. You're going to be able to get the most variation in colors. They also are very vibrant. You can see that in the ice creams, that they turned out very vibrant as compared to some of the others. Here is the color chart. You'll see it turns out really cool. There's a lot of cool things. There is a titanium white, which is kind of interesting for watercolor. You also do get some of the green and orange coming through on the Venn diagram. Not finally, kind of finally. For the bottled liquid watercolor, the last one is the Avery Elle. And these come in a plastic jar, and they're like eyedroppers. So if you've ever had the eye drops that you have to put in from the doctor, that's the type of lid they have, which works almost the same as the pipettes, and you feel less like if you spill, you're going to spill a whole ton of your product. You might spill a drop or two. I did spill one of the Hero Arts, and I picked it up really fast, but I still lost a little bit of the product. So here I'm adding in some red. The Avery Elle watercolors you'll see are a little bit lighter. They're the lightest of the watercolors that just straight out of the can, but they're very beautiful colors. So if these are the kind of colors you're wanting to go for, it's great to go with them. if you're wanting to go to the primaries or the jewel tones, you might need a different brand. Also, they don't have a brown, so you'll see that in just a minute. I actually have to create the brown. But I did have a ton of fun painting with these. If you haven't seen the painting I did with these Avery Elle colors, I would definitely go ahead and tell you to check that out because it ended up looking so cool. You'll see it on the next page. But here I am using some other colors to color in some of the water or some of the different ice creams. We'll fast forward. Oh, real quick, this purple was the one color, was one of the two colors overall I felt like was a little too watered down. It was very watered down color. So if you're interested in getting this set, but you really like purple, you might go ahead and get a different purple from another company. It's a beautiful purple. It just is very watered down. Now we'll move on to the browns, and you can see what I'm doing is using some of the orange as well as some of the teal blue color, which are complementary colors, and so they give me a brown. That's one trick. If you don't have a brown, you can actually create your own brown with complementary colors. That means they're on the opposite side of the color wheel. I felt like it needed to be warmed up a little bit, so I added a little bit of the red, but that was a little too much. So I'm adding some more of the green, which is the complementary color, to a red. And that got me close to what I was wanting. If this was the only watercolor set I bought, I would buy a brown and a yellow from another company because those are missing from the colors that they have. Overall, I really enjoyed the Avery Elle watercolors, and I'm happy that I have them. There's just a few things to note. So you can see I'm adjusting my brown. Browns are nice, but I personally like having one. So you can see I'm trying and trying, and then I'm stuck with a bunch of this not great color, watercolor. If you had a brown, I would just use that. So we'll move on. Here are the colors. They're light and fun with a very smooth application. They're very easy to control. There is no black, brown, nor yellow. So the lemongrass comes close to a yellow, but it's still slightly on the green scale. Just something to note. The colors were great. They actually matched some of their ink colors, and they came out beautiful. I think that my favorite of the individual images that I painted was the Avery Elle image of the campers. So here is the color chart. You will be able to see a little bit of the orange, the purple, and the green. You'll get more of that when you mix it, but these are very concentrated colors with just one drop over that small area, so you do get some masking of the colors rather than mixing. But you can see the beautiful hues you can get by mixing them over in the left-hand side. You can also notice that the sugar plum is kind of watered down because it bleaches the other colors. Finally, we have the Jane Davenport liquid watercolors. And these are dye-based inks, so that's something important to note. But the application isn't all that different. Just instead of dropping it in with the dropper, you're just dropping it in with the paint. So here I am. I added straight from the brush on both of these to create the snowball. And I'll bring my brush in to just mix those a little bit. Then we can skip forward to where I'm adding the brown in. I'm using that same color, the same bottom color from the snowball, and which is a flesh tone. It's a very light flesh tone, but it is a flesh tone. And I'll go in and add some brown over top of that to darken it up and mix those colors. I can just show you that real quick. You can see there. Comes out really nice. I did add just a hint of the lighter color over top to lighten it up and warm it up just a little bit as well. Here we have all the different pictures I created. I should note that the swatches, the white dots are not actually issues with the paint pens. I messed up when I was embossing them and got powder everywhere. So that's embossing powder and not something you need to worry about with the pens, that they're going to add weird white dots. But I was too tired and I was like, yeah, they're good enough. So you see that they're muted jewel tones. They're a fun product and they are dye-based, so rather than the pigment-based. It's important to note if you're wanting to do real watercolor, you want to get the pigments. They just work a lot better and you can do a lot of cool stuff with the pigments that you can't do with the dye products. Here we go with the chart. It turned out really cool. I do really enjoy this product. It's a lot of fun to use. Next we have this one where I am showing you real quick how I created the next page, which is just a comparison. So along the top you'll see all 5 of the different ones we've gone through: the Pink Fresh, Hero Arts, Avery, Elle, DR.PH Martins. And I just went through and did a couple different techniques for each. So for the top box, I did 1 drop of color into a little bit of wet watercolor to see how intense the colors really are. Then on the second row, I go ahead and do a color wash. So that's where that's a 1 color gradient. I take a deep, almost straight from the bottle, all the way to just water. Then I'm mixing the colors for the third one, which you can see me doing now, just to see, do the colors really mix? Is it going to look nice? Then I'm going to do a gradient over top of some drawn on squiggles to see how opaque the watercolor is. Next, I have color lift. So what that is that faux bleaching technique. I'll let this row dry completely and then I'll put a few drops of water on each cell. Then after about 30 seconds, I blot it off to see which color actually comes off. Then I'm going to have the final row where I'm going to put a drop of each color into that cell and see kind of what happens. One thing you will note is that the top color, the blue, actually kind of dominates the other colors. That's because my desk is not 100% even flat, so gravity does pull the water down just a little bit. I'm not going to show you everything. You can see there the color wash, and here is the color gradient. I heated it between the different parts. I finished it up. I'm going to add the water now. And after I even heated it up for a little bit, and when I blotted it off, the only color that came off was for the Jane Davenports, and that's probably because they're dye-based inks. So I tried it again with the other 4, and I got a little bit more of a result, but not much. So just things to note. Great way to try your products out and see what kind of techniques work for what medium. So here is a picture of this one. If you're interested in looking at each individual cell, go ahead and pause here. I also have 2 pictures, close-ups of the different bottles, and you can take a look. finally, I'm going to close with a packaging and a product review. So we went through most of this. The Pink Fresh and the Hero Arts are the glass bottles. The Pink Fresh, Hero Arts, DR.PH Martins all come in the pipette dropper, while the Avery Elle comes in an eyedropper, and the Jane Davenport is actually a brush. The one thing for the Pink Fresh Studios that I didn't love was the top. It actually seems child-proof, which makes it very secure for travel, but trying to take those tops off is a pain. The Hero Arts was probably my favorite in their packaging. It was just like the Pink Fresh, except it didn't have the child-proof top, but it does definitely feel secure for travel. I would put all of these in a Ziploc bag for sure, but I wouldn't be worried that it was gonna explode everywhere. The Jane Davenports are the ones that aren't secure for travel, which is interesting because they are the marker, and you would think that'd be more easy to travel with. If you're going to be in your studio all the time painting with these, it's not something to worry about. If you like to go and paint with others in classes or things like that, then it's definitely something to consider. For the products, you can see that the Pink Fresh is brand new and there's 12 colors. The Hero Arts has, as of the time of this video I checked today, I know they have at least 13 now, possibly a 14th color. The Avery Elle has 10. The DR.PH Martins has 36, and the Jane Davenport has 32, and they just released some new colors that moved it from 12 to 32. The Pink Fresh is somewhere between Jewel and Primary for their overall portfolio of watercolors. The Hero Arts palette is more primary, and the Avery Elle is, I would call it a light spring beige color family. It's somewhere less than primary, less vibrant than primary. The DR.PH Martins are definitely dark. They're past the jewel tones. And the Jane Davenports are probably stormy jewel colors. Other notable information, the Pink Fresh and DR.PH Martins, I'm 100% sure, are pigment-based. The Hero Arts and Avery Elle, I'm pretty sure they're pigment-based, but I can't say for 100% certain. But they both are inspired by their ink colors, so if you really follow those lines, you may be interested in getting those watercolors so that you can coordinate. The amount of product in all 4 of the bottled watercolors is a ½ ounce. So look at the prices and see the amount of product you're getting is the same for each of them. In the Jane Davenports, I couldn't figure out how much actual product you get. So really, if you're looking for a what's the right answer, it's really up to you. You need to look at these and say, you know what's really important for me is travel, so I want to go with whichever watercolor you want to go with. You also want to look at the color tones. I feel like that's a critical factor. Otherwise, some of the other aspects of all of them, they're pretty similar in application. Kind of the quality, I would say, is pretty similar among all of them. So really what you want to look for is the color tones that you're interested in, because that's where you're going to get the best results, because they're colors that you like. So thanks so much for joining me. Come back on Friday and you'll see this super awesome fun Funsplosion card that I made with all of the little ice creams that I painted. So have a wonderful day and I'll see you soon. Bye.